Okay, just got back from the new Mobile Suit Gundam movie. What's this one? Sorcery of Nymph Circe, I believe is the subtitle for this one. This is the second in the Hathaway film trilogy. We are the furthest into Universal Century thus far, I believe. Well, I think technically F91 is further on than this, but are we really counting F91? Full disclosure for this review, I have not seen Char's counterattack in about 7 or 8 years. I have vague memories of it, but I have not seen anything prior to... I have not seen Zeta, Double Zeta, or Char's counterattack in almost a decade. So, and I do think it's not necessary to go back and rewatch those, but it wouldn't hurt, because a lot of the emotional pull relies on that stuff, specifically Char's counterattack. But for this one, after that, it's Universal Century had a bit of ups and downs, one could say. Like, we had Unicorn, which is now, as of a few months ago, my favorite Gundam thing, period. And then right after that, we had Twilight Axis and Narrative, which are terrible. And then this. So I watched all of those in the lead up to this, and then I watched the first Hathaway movie, which I found to be okay, but I think with this second movie, I finally understand what this director is going for. I forgot who the director's name is. I'll have to look him up later. But I think I finally really get what he's going for. I don't necessarily fully agree with what he's going for, but I am starting to get a more concrete vision of his vision, especially in the visual sense. Unsurprisingly, watching this on a big theater screen is much better than watching it on a TV in your living room. You're definitely going to get the full, which was how I watched the first Hathaway film. I just sort of watched it on my TV. Not nearly as impressive as seeing it in theaters, but also seeing it in theaters did not alleviate a lot of my issues with the first film. In particular, the fact that this project ascribes to the lighting theory in which darkness equals darkness. Things are going to be dark and hard to see, which, on the one hand, realistic. On the other hand, makes it very hard to see. Like, I don't know. I come from an era when dark scenes in anime were colored purple, because A, it conveyed the fact that the scene was dark, and B, you could still see what was happening in a very stylistic way. When you just make everything very dark and like very gray and brown, it just gets hard to see. And when there's action going on in that darkness, you're kind of missing out on some action. So, on the one hand, that kind of realism I do not vibe with. On the other hand, there are some kinds of realism where I'm legitimately impressed by what he's going for. In particular, a lot of the character acting is really cool. It is intentionally over-animated is not the right word, but intentionally accentuated in a lot of areas that really make the character acting pop and really work when the scene is lit well. And there is just an intense polish to the characters and the character designs and the character animation that really gives this film a distinctive feel, as does how it interacts with the backgrounds, which is a point that I am still of two minds about, because there is so much CG in this film. Very oftentimes used for backgrounds, almost without a care in the world for compositing. Like, there are a lot of moments where it is just so obvious that the 2D animated characters and the CG backgrounds do not look like they're on the same plane of reality. And yet it kind of looks cool sometimes. They definitely go there. It's definitely not stylized CG for the most part. It is very much like a more realistic CG, especially with the way that water is animated and that plants look. And so sometimes it just looks cool. Not all the time, because when they use it for characters, it looks really bad. When they use it for cars, it looks really bad. Just sort of an aside, I'm also in the middle of watching Last Exile right now, which, if you've seen that show, kind of a similar vibe. So, on the one hand, sometimes it looks cool despite the compositing issues. On the other hand, sometimes it just does not look very good or cohesive. This is an incredibly schizophrenic production, all culminating in something that I'm not going to spoil for this video, because I like to keep my movie reviews spoiler-free. But the last 15 minutes of this film, as soon as it started, it had me going, oh, they created this entire film trilogy just to make this scene, which, without giving anything away, I'm going to describe as new type shower thoughts, or new type shower arguments. If you see the movie, you'll know what I'm talking about. But, that scene might have raised the score of this film by a whole point, because it is, quite honestly, one of the coolest things I've ever seen Gundam do. And it also looks so much tremendously better than the rest of the film. I will say overall, though, there is a strong sense for direction. There is a lot of... It's extremely well-paced. The way everything is shot is really cool. There are a lot of moments in this that feel almost live-action-y in a sense. Which, again, if that's the intent, I understand the vision, but also sometimes that butts up against the fact that this is animation, and not all live-action techniques work good in animation. But again, those last, 15-20 minutes-ish are just so good. I can't talk about them because it's such a massive spoiler, but boy, they're good, and they're a really great way to cap off this particular section of Hathaway's arc for this film, which is continuing his spiral downwards into ideology from the past film, which itself is sort of a remnant from Char's counterattack as well. This sort of becoming so obsessed with the ideology of your movement and perpetuating the ideology that you start to alienate the human elements surrounding you. We see this with just the general some mild fracturing of Hathaway's psyche in this film, as well as how he treats some of his comrades and the way that his relationship with them evolves, the way that his relationship with Gigi evolves throughout this film. This vague, who I don't think they have. I can't remember if they have called her a new type or not at some point, but she is very clearly a new type. Slash femme fatale kind of character. Not necessarily femme fatale, but just embodiment of, or I guess representation of desire of sorts. But I will also say she is also finally come into a character of her own as well, which I think I was waiting for this series, and the way that she is beginning to reflect on her life and the profession that she has chosen as a sort of, as she describes it, a courtesan, and how that has given her insight into the lives of and frustrations of many different peoples and such, and how that has influenced how she wants to start living her life from now on as she gets further embroiled in this conflict. It's pretty solid stuff. I think this film overall had a much stronger direction to take the plot than the first film. Not that the first film was necessarily bad in that department, but I do think it was a little bit muddled. And I think we're really solidifying where this is going. Not entirely. There's still a lot left that it could deviate in one direction or the other, but at the very least, the way that the Hathaway and Gigi have sort of solidified the direction that their characters are going for the most part has me fairly excited for the last film whenever that comes out. Also, with the introduction of some more pre-established Gundam characters, again, not going to spoil who shows up, but it is definitely going to be a major issue for some of the characters in this upcoming final film whenever they eventually get involved and how they eventually get involved. So yeah, I'm a bit happier with this film than the previous one. I still am not fully on board with the visual direction that it is going for, but I am a little bit more interested in where it is going narratively, and if it can pull off another instance of like what it does in the last bit of this film in the final film, I think we're gonna be going in some interesting places. So what am I feeling for this one? I think I'm feeling a strong 6 to a light 7 with this one. Again, I'm still very conflicted over how this thing looks. The fact that we do not get that most of the Gundam fights, the fact that most of the mobile suit fights are these CG, not necessarily CG blobs, but just CG action figures being smashed together for the most part, is fairly disappointing, with a few exceptions, but yeah, it is what it is. Either way, I'm excited for this last one, just to see how this all wraps up. I think regardless of where it goes, I'm turning into a Universal Century completionist, in that I just want to know all of Universal Century. And I'll get to some other stuff for that later, but that's it for this video. I don't think there's a lot of new anime films coming out. I skipped Labyrinth, to be honest, because that just looked so bad. I just did not want to waste money on that. I might do a video for the anniversary screening of Tekken Kincrete, since I've never seen that before, so maybe y'all go out and see that. But until then, my name is Ember, and I'll see you next time.